Hey, friends, welcome back to the Call to Lead podcast. So, in today's episode, I'm actually going to be addressing a bit of an elephant in the room, if we will. So, we're talking about innovations and the Chisel acronym in terms of leading your team, whether you're in the same company I'm a part of or a completely different network marketing company, or whether you're listening to this in real time or years down the road. We've been addressing the life cycle head on of what a network marketing business goes through in especially its first 5 to 7 years of the business, and how after that, after going through seasons of hyper growth, which most companies like kind of have that hyper growth phase, then really kind of stabling off into a growth by promotion stage where things kind of get a little stagnant, which creates confusion and frustration, which sometimes leads to what's called the shakeout, when things start to decline and business starts to get a little bit scary, and what is already kind of a business model that can be, as I call it in some of the workshops I've done, a jungle. It can start to feel a little bit like a wasteland. And what happens is sometimes people get either afraid or distracted by shiny objects, or honestly, in some cases, legitimately called to look into doing something new and joining a new network marketing company. So I'm going to be sharing some things that are definitely big on my heart today. And I want you to know that the things that I'm sharing aren't coming from the lens of trying to convince you one way or another, but more allowing you to consider the 4 different scenarios that you might encounter, that you will honestly encounter when and if you make this decision to either join another company, to stay where you are, stay, right in the company that you are, or potentially even quit this business model altogether. So if you feel like you have all these options and you're maybe considering prayerfully a lot of these options, I hope today's episode will help give a little insight into what you can expect, and I can share some of my perspective on an inspiration the Lord is giving me in this season. So let's dive into this episode. Okay, so the inspiration for this episode actually just came to me yesterday. I wasn't planning to talk about this, but I felt so inspired and also kind of got clarity from my time in the Word this morning. As you may know, I have been doing the Bible recap reading plan of going chronologically through the Bible, and I'm on day 207, and I was so excited that today was reading one of my favorite verses in Scripture, and the one that has been inspiring kind of my leadership systems that I've been developing. It inspired my entire course, the Replicate Your Results course. And that is Isaiah 40:31, which says, "Those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not grow faint. They will soar on wings like eagles." And I just love this verse because in network marketing, we talk about walking, jogging, running, and I talk a lot about soaring when you're leaning on the Lord to sustain you, especially in the tough seasons of your business, which might be for you right now in this season. And if you try to do it all on your own, if you try to put your hope in your current company or your current circumstances, or your hope in some other worldly tangible thing like doing a new network marketing business, that is not going to give you the strength to do this new thing, if that makes sense. It's not going to give you what you need to allow you to soar wherever you choose to run and operate your business. So I love this verse, but in the Bible recap, which this is the book that goes along, I usually listen to it on the podcast, but Tara Lee Cobble, she also has a YouTube, like a little review, but each day there's a specific scripture to read. Like this was Isaiah 40-43. And then she kind of gives like a really relatable insight in it. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about this was, number one, it was my verse, right? And I'll share at the end of this episode another amazing epiphany that I had from today's reading. But I also got really, really excited that not only did I get to read that verse, which obviously has been a huge inspiration for a lot of the things I talk about on this podcast, but Isaiah 43:19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." Okay, so you might be thinking as I read that, like, first of all, Heather, what does that have to do with this conversation around joining a new network marketing company? And why does this particular verse encourage me? Because it could be read by someone to aid in their choice to join a new company, right? And again, that's the best part about scripture is especially when you're digging into the word. And if you're making this decision, which I did an entire episode on whether or not the Lord is calling you to do, grow, leave, change, quit your network marketing company. And I can link to that in the description. But one of the things I talk about is staying in the word because it will guide you, it will ground you, and it will speak to you maybe differently than it speaks to me. But for me, when I read this morning, it was an amazing reflection of something that I realized yesterday. So, despite the fact that I think it's pretty clear that Saint is in the shakeout, which a hallmark of that is when leaders or sellers or people start to go to other companies. And if you spend any time on social media or not, you can probably see that that is happening with some pretty prominent, pretty awesome people within our company. And so it can be cause for concern and it can be cause for you to kind of evaluate and think like, oh, wait, do I need to be doing this? Am I going to miss the boat if I don't, join them in this business? What's happening? Should I be pursuing all of these? Like, should I be afraid? What's happening? And it can instill like this discomfort or this discouragement. And I feel like it's important for me to kind of call it right out, number one. But number two, I also want to tell you that for me personally, I mean it when I say, and I actually texted Sarah, my mentor, this yesterday. I'm like, I have never been more inspired, motivated, fired up about my business. And it's because I am taking the time to implement my gifts, my strengths, my skill set, my passion for this product. I actually had a class the night before last, a huge, amazing in-person makeup class where the women loved it. They felt beautiful. We had fun. And it was such a reminder that this business is amazing. This product is amazing. I'm also doing 2 separate trainings for the gals on our team who are actively working their business and who are engaged and seeing momentum. And there's a lot of them that are doing that because, again, people still love our product. They still love this business. And I'm focusing my energy on those who are doing the things, right? And I'm seeing these inspiring emerging leaders who are sharing their stories in these trainings and who are sharing their strengths. And it is so inspiring to me because I'm like, yes, like this is what this business is about. It's not about me having success in my business. It's about helping other people find joy, feel beautiful, and build something that brings impact to their life and their family. And I'm seeing that despite the fact that, yeah, I think Saint is in the shakeout, okay? But what happens is a lot of times it's like just as Brett Blake said on a couple episodes back, like a lot of times it's just a small group, but it's a very vocal group. Sometimes it's a very public group that kind of get disgruntled and discouraged. And it creates, it's about 20%, he says, and it kind of creates discouragement and confusion when it's kind of brought into the public sphere like it is now with people making decisions, which again, I'm not going to judge anyone's decisions to do what's right for their business, for their family, for their financial situations, to each their own. I love some of these people that are making these decisions and choices, and I honor them and I support them in that. So I'm not trying to negate what someone is choosing, what you may choose to do in your business. But what I do want to do is just offer an alternative perspective and an alternative, I guess, like vision for where I see this business going, which again is to go to renewal, which every company, every single one is going to go through this life cycle 5 to 7 years in where they will experience the shakeout. And it's up to us as field leaders and it's up to us in the corporate team, which I know can also be kind of a like confusing thing because we don't have control over what our corporate does or doesn't do. But guess what? When things start to decline, that's when they go to the field, who are essentially the ones that are running the company for them. Can I get an amen? But they come to us and they ask us how they can better serve us. And collectively, when we as leaders, and you might not even be a leader of a team, but if you are a top leader, we have an amazing opportunity to stand our ground, to be a part of the solution and the change. And guess what can happen? We can lead this company, this business, back to renewal, which is even higher heights. We're soaring even higher than we did at even the peak of our hypergrowth phase, as Brett talks about. And so that's my hope. Now, well, I say that. My hope is in the Lord, first of all, because again, those who wait and hope in the Lord, He will renew our strength, right? But I do have hope and I do have this like feeling that Saint is, because it is an incredible product and because people are still falling in love with this makeup, they're still falling in love with this business and people are still ranking and growing and they're sharing their stories right now with the leaders who are actively working their business on my team. And I get to see it. I get to be a firsthand witness to this and maybe you're a part of that as well. And so I have never been more excited. And I realize there's like such a stark contrast between how I'm feeling and how I know you might be feeling and listening. And I want you to know that it can be both, okay? But I'm just hoping and praying that the things that I'm going to share today can just help you give a little bit of a different counter perspective to allow you to make the decision that's best for your family, okay? So that's kind of the lens or the inspiration for where this is coming from and why I feel it's a really important conversation. So if you're feeling discouraged or hopeless or honestly even just curious about what it looks like to maybe join a new company, I'm going to give you 4 scenarios that you can consider, okay? So the first scenario is you try to do both. So whether you're in Saint, another company, you're in a company, you're enrolled as a distributor, and you kind of see something that maybe seems a little bit appealing, whether it's from the financial side, maybe it's a product that you love, maybe you just feel like you could share both. Meaning you're going to enroll and you're still enrolled in your one company, but you're enrolling in an additional new company. So you're trying to do them both in your business. So this is the first scenario. Now there's kind of scenarios within the scenario. So if you are an online influencer, meaning you have built a ton of, followers and connections in this social media space, or honestly, even not necessarily on social media, if you've built a ton of relationship equity and you try to do both, you might have success personally. You might actually have a lot of success personally. You might sell a ton of your product with even just one post or one reel, or because it is something kind of new and different, it might spark some excitement from the people who are following you. Or again, the reel might even go viral or something like that. Or you might spark some curiosity from your customers because you have built that level of trust. And so you might have like some pretty good results like right out the gate that might make you feel like, oh yeah, okay, this is a good choice. I can totally do both. And even if you aren't joining that company, and I hear this a lot where people say like, oh, well, I'm not going to build over there. I'm just going to build here. Well, I teach the funnel, meaning like your potential customers or your dream teamies are going to like kind of move through a funnel to potentially become artists. And that's going to happen naturally if you're doing this business the right way, which a lot of times these influencers are. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have people join you, whether you want them to or not. So then what do you do? What is that? What kind of confusion? What kind of, conundrum does that put you in? Because I can find that it can, at that point, create confusion and chaos for you, not just within your team, because they're like, oh, wait, is this person? Like, again, fear sets in and they're like, is this person like moving to another company? Do I need to do the same thing? Like, do I need to like jump ship? Like, what's happening? It creates confusion in your team. It creates confusion in the relationships that you've built in the teams of your sideline sisters or maybe your mentor, where they're like thinking the same thing, right? Like they're like shiny object. Do I need to do this too? And it creates this like kind of confusion and chaos that is honestly like, we talk about like a strong culture, talk about a strong community and the things we desire from our current environment. Well, if you're creating the opposite of that, where it's like a culture of division or confusion or like chaos, because if you are an influencer, it will and is and does create chaos in the teams of your sideline sisters, of your uplines, your downlines, all of these things. Like when you make this choice, okay, you have to be aware that this is what's going to happen. So I'm not saying that that this new opportunity can't be the biggest blessing for you. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I am making you aware of the reality that this is what's going to happen. And you have to really think like, is that what I want? Like, is that scenario what I want? The other thing, if you are an influencer and you've built a big following, that you have to remember is the people that do join you in business are likely not going to have that same success right out the gate that you experienced. And I see this even within Saint, that a lot of times these top sellers and top performers, their teams don't do a lot. And it's because they're comparing themselves to them. Even if they have a level of success, if it's not the success that you're having or you're seeing, if they don't get the same number of comments, likes, engagement on their first like launch post, they're going to feel discouraged and they're not going to do the things and they're not going to have success, which again, you're the one that might be having success personally, but it could lead to burnout. It could lead to a lack of fulfillment because you're the only one that's having success. Okay. So I want you to be aware that if you are an influencer and you do have the relationship equity, that this could be the scenario that happens to you if you try to do both. Now, let's talk about those of you who are thinking about doing both, but you're not an influencer. You don't have a big following. You don't have a big customer base, with your existing company. That is one of the scariest, and honestly, I'm just going to say it, it's one of the biggest mistakes that you can do to try to divide your time and energy, even if it's your goal is just to make an additional income, because same kind of rules apply. Your customers get confused, your existing team members, if you have them, start to kind of get like, oh gosh, is she really like firmly planted here? Do I need to be firmly planted here? They're going to think, because people aren't going to do what you tell them to. They're going to do what they see you do. And so they're going to be in the same place you are, which is trying to decide which conference do you go to. If you've got a friend or a customer in one or the other companies that wants to start a business, like which one do you recommend to them? It's, basically it's really difficult to focus your energy trying to build two businesses of any kind. And I know that because I had a boutique, a small business, not even within network marketing, that was difficult to really go all in here at Saint to try to do it. And I also know because I spent the last at least year considering building an additional business model of like, courses and things like that, monetizing my podcast. And I decided to let that go because I felt called to go all in here with the one thing that's honestly bringing me the most joy, the most success, the most financial impact for my family. And so when you are not, an influencer and when you don't have that and you try to put yourself out there in the same way that maybe your upline or your new upline that had that success, you might be the one that's feeling discouraged because you didn't have that same level of success. And it's going to create confusion and chaos in your heart and in the hearts and minds of the ones who have entrusted you and the relationships that you've built. So again, you're kind of creating that opposite culture of what you're craving in your company when you do have a level of control over that in your existing business, okay? So if you're not an influencer, you don't have a big following, you try to do two, just like you're seeing the, top social seller do, publicly on social media, I can tell you it's not going to bring you what you're craving in this business, which is an impact and an income and a fulfillment for your business, okay, if you try to do them both. And then lastly, in this scenario, what I see happen a lot of times is people who have that fear or that discouragement, or maybe they can't quite see what could be possible on the back end. Like fear, faith is choosing to believe what's the best possible outcome. Fear is imagining the worst case scenario, and you're living in that as if it's already happened. And what happens when you're making a decision to join another company because you're in fear or afraid of what's going to happen in your current one, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that's likely going to, your business in that company is likely going to crumble. And it's just, it's really sad to me. And, it's definitely something that you need to kind of consider if you are going to try to do both, is that likely the business that you joined and loved is likely going to crumble. And then you're going to have to go all in, which is the second scenario. Okay. So what if you go all in on a new one? What if you decide completely to walk away from this business that you have built, whether it's big, small, whatever that looks like, the business in your existing company, to go pursue a new company? And I'm going to be honest with you, like, first of all, if you choose this, it's likely either because you feel called to do it. Maybe you listen to my podcast, that I linked below. And again, I'm never trying to convince you what you should or shouldn't do. That's not the goal of this podcast. I'll share what I'm going to do, and I'll share the scenarios to allow you to make the decision, but there's no judgment. There's only the grace to know that you may feel called to do it. Okay. Now you have to question, is that calling from the Lord, or is it called because someone maybe in that company, whether it's like a corporate leader, or a corporate person, or a leader in that company, like, are they calling you to do it by sharing maybe all the pain points that you're experiencing in your current situation and painting a picture that you won't have that pain point in the new thing? Is that what's calling you to this, or is it the Lord? And only you can know that, right? But if you feel called to do it, that could be one scenario. Or it literally could just be that, you might not even be a believer and you're like, I don't even know what it means to be called to do something, but like, it's pretty convincing what this person is telling me to do. So again, whether it's a leader or someone at the corporate team, a lot of times these emerging new companies, they've got this CEO that's like fired up and, available, and they're like, give me all the, the things. And our CEO did the same thing back in the day. Okay. Like, I know she's had calls with, people considering joining, things like that. And that's awesome if you have that opportunity, but it doesn't mean that the grass is greener Or honestly, what it kind of does mean is like, again, if that's what it took to get you there, is that what it's going to take for you to have to do that on your team? Do you really think that CEO is going to do that same phone call with all of the new people that join in your business to give them that same kind of feeling? I don't know. I mean, that would be a lot of calls for the CEO. She's probably going to get burned out too. Anyways, I'm just saying. So not that there's not now top leader, like third party, having a three-way phone call or three-way Zoom with a potential leader. That's actually something that you could bring back and do in your current business, because it's actually a pretty smart one to help understand the benefits of that business. But you have to just be really careful that if you're being wooed away, if you're essentially being, kind of like contacted or cultivated, that's not necessarily like the best business practice. And I don't know a network marketing coach that, not even with a company, that would agree that that's a smart way to go about recruiting people, is to woo them away from another company. Again, I think I've kind of said this before. It's kind of like the hot guy at the gym that's like, you share the struggles with, your marriage with him. He's like, oh, baby, like come over here. It's like, how's that going to work out? Right? Like, how's that really going to work for you? So if you're considering going all in a new one, it's probably one of those two things. So you really have to wrestle. Is it the Lord? Is it God? Or is it the smooth talk of someone else that's trying to convince you? And just like, in marriage, the grass is not always greener. It's greener where you water it. And marriage is hard. Business is hard. Network marketing is hard. Network marketing leadership is really hard. And that's the reality of the situation. Okay. And it's going to be hard here. It's going to be hard there. And you're not going to like have that situation be just alleviated overnight by going to something new. Okay. So now, one thing I will say about this decision, if you do decide to go all in with a company, I do believe that this is the highest integrity option, because you are honoring your choice and you're owning your choice, you're owning your decisions, and it might be the best thing for your family. And so if you're doing this, go for it. Like if you make this decision, go all in, go for it. And I think you're going to have a lot more success in doing that. I really feel and believe that. But you have to remember that you're going to be bringing all of you, your shortcomings, your bad habits, the leadership principles that you've never quite mastered, the negative self thoughts, like the belief issues that you might have in, the business model, or, in other people or in yourself. You're going to be bringing all of those things to this new company, and the new company is not going to fix it for you. Also, that new company is going to have its whole other, bag of issues that you're going to have to work through and navigate, and you're going to be completely starting over, which more power to you if you've got the energy to do it. But I see leaders who are burned out in one business think that they are just going to have this renewed energy in this new business, and they're bringing the same things that brought them down into this new thing. And it's not going to create or sustain, because it's not based on an inspiration or fulfillment to really go all in. Okay. So just know you're going to be starting over. Okay. And then lastly, if you are going to go all in, you have to realize that this company is somewhere on that exact same life cycle. So if they're brand new, they might be going through the hyper growth phase where everybody's like doubling and tripling and the sales numbers are going up, right? That's going to happen. Well, guess what's going to happen in a few years? They're going to level out. They're going to have a growth by promotion phase, where really the only way that people are getting sales is by doing sales and incentives, and your customers are going to get exhausted. Your residual, income is going to kind of start to slip. Because sometimes, like, for example, February numbers, which I think will be next week's episode, weren't like that amazing, but it's because we had 3 back-to-back promotions in November, December, January. Insane. So my customers had already reordered, right? Like there were a lot of reasons to join, or, to buy, because there's new products, new things, right? And the month before. So naturally, in a cyclical business, which that's any business is, yeah, February is not going to be the best month. Okay. So don't let that be the fear that creates or causes you to want to jump ship. Okay. Anyways, but they're going to go through the same cycle. They will also have a shakeout 5 to 7 years in. They will, because people, again, brought their bad leadership habits. And that's where you see a lot of network marketing opportunity hoppers that go from company to company to company to company. It's because they're bringing that same stuff, right? And because the companies they get to, by the time they get to the shakeout, they're like, oh no, let me hop ship. Okay. And I mean, I guess that's one way to do it, but what kind of trust is that cultivating to your following? I'm just saying. So if you go all in on a new one, know that you're probably going to have the best success in that new company if you do that, but realize the scenario that it may leave your, existing team, the relationships that you built, all of those things, you've got to kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so the next scenario is you decide to quit your company and network marketing altogether, meaning you're not going to go to a new company, you're just not going to do this business at all anymore. And again, I can't tell you whether you should or shouldn't do that. I definitely would say get really prayerful. Listen to that podcast that I did a while back on if it's the Lord's will to do that. But in that scenario, I just want to kind of paint the picture of what that could look like. So, wherever you are in your business, you've likely built some level of residual income, meaning you have customers that love your product, that are continually ordering from you. And in some cases, that can be a significant amount of your business. And a lot of times, if you're feeling burned out or like uncertain in your business, or if you're kind of afraid of what the future is going to look like in your business, you can stop producing like yourself personally, which means that your personal business drops and it means that your income drops as well. But you might be surprised that the income that you are sustaining is likely from residual income from your personal business, from your customers reordering, or from your team that's doing the work. And my friends, that is the coolest part about this business model. It's the best part is if you are in a season where you need to take a break, you might have to realize that your income probably will not be what it was when you were actively jogging or running in your business. But if you need to slow down to a crawl in your business for a season because you're burned out, because of circumstances, because of life, hopefully you've built your business to where you've got that income that's coming in. And I don't want you to feel guilty or like you have to let that go unless you feel totally called to, because it's still, or, well, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to let it go because if you're joining another company, sometimes they will allow you to, from a compliance perspective, try to do both. So that's a whole other, decision right there, right? But if you're not going to do this, why do you feel the need to quit it altogether? Unless you feel totally convicted and clear that that's what you're meant to do. What if you kind of like, what if what you're feeling is a season that's based in burnout? Or again, what if it's like you're making this decision because you're afraid of what's going to happen and you're deciding to walk away altogether? And so if that is the case, I invite you to take a break, to take a rest in your business. I've also done a podcast kind of talking about what that looks like, to kind of reevaluate and maybe see if there's another way that you could bring newness into your existing business after that season of rest. Quiet your mind, really, seek the Lord in that, like get some wisdom. A great book that really helped me with this, and I know I've already talked about, is Growing Slow by Jennifer Dukes Lee. And so it doesn't have to look so black and white, like you completely emailing into your corporate compliance and hitting, cancel on your account. It can look like you taking a pause, communicating with your leadership, or team if you've got one, and just letting them know, hey, I'm in a season right now where I need to step away and I need to pour into my family or my faith, or sometimes it's a health related journey that makes you feel like you need to do that. And as long as you're transparent about it and you're not just like ghosting your team and connecting them maybe with your mentor or your upline so that they can serve them, that is a beautiful thing because likely your mentor or your upline is going to be able to continually help them. And you might have, just because you're feeling that way doesn't necessarily mean people on your team are feeling that way. And I think sometimes we feel like whatever we're feeling, we kind of project that on others or assume that others are feeling that way. And so, you may have people who are still in this thing and want to do this thing. And so you can connect them with your mentor. And that's the best part about this business model is you can all win together, even if that looks like you taking a step back or a break in your business. But if you quit altogether, that residual income, like I've had one of my amazing artists, I've talked about her on this podcast, but she had an incredible thriving business and did feel called to kind of walk away and start another different business model, and which she's now not doing anymore. And I feel like sometimes a part of her probably wishes that she hadn't let go that residual income that wasn't necessarily what she had hoped it to be in the long run here, which who knows if she had, stayed and poured in that thing, what that income could look like. But she walked away from all of it and it did roll up to me. And so I know she's got a lot of customers that still love this product. And a part of me, I'm like, I wish that it could still be hers because it didn't have to look so black and white. Now, hers, again, was more of a conviction, and I would never argue against that. So if that is where you are and that's where your heart is, certainly don't let me talk you out of that. But what I'm saying is the beauty of this business model is the residual income that we build from our existing customers, from the team and the volume that's happening underneath us, and you absolutely can still continue that. And I don't want you to feel guilt or feel like you're not a good person or not a good leader if you need to dial back your pace and, as opposed to like quitting altogether. So that's the third scenario is what if you quit altogether? So lastly, and this is what I am choosing to do. This is a scenario that I'm fully embracing and have been embracing out loud on this podcast all year long is what if you stay where you are, right where you are, and you plant your feet in your company, whether that's Saint or another company, whatever season you're in, what if you go all in right where you are? What would that look like? What would you do if you were to kind of shy away from, going with the crowd or, going with the vocal, sometimes minority who are like I don't know if you've ever watched the above the line or the below the line video, but I can link that in the show notes as well. But it talks about it at one point, we're all either above the line or below the line. And when people are below the line, meaning like they're living in fear or scarcity, things seem really serious. And it's like, what if it's not as serious as we think it is? Like, what if, yes, there are issues. There are always going to be issues in any kind of company or business model. And certainly in a season of like uncertainty with the economy, or again, in a season of like the shakeout where sales aren't quite what they used to be, it can be a little bit scary. But is it serious? Not necessarily. And for example, our company is debt free. It's family owned and getting ready to expand in three countries. And so to me, I'm like, from a stability perspective, there's not really ever been a better time to plant your feet, go all in, which is one of the reasons why I am choosing to do it. And here's the thing, you're not starting from square one. If you go to another company or if you completely start over, or if you get a job in a different completely business model, you're going to have to start over. You're going to have to learn all the things. You're going to have to like educate yourself. You're going to be starting with zero, right? In terms of sales, customers. You're not starting with zero in terms of your connections and your relationships, not ever. And that should be the value wherever you are. That's what you're building, is the relationships and the connections that you have. But what if you just leverage what you already have? The gals on your team who are still engaged, the ones who still need this, the gal that I literally just got off the phone with that's considering this as a business model, and I think it can be exactly what she's looking for and a big blessing to her family. What if I go all in on that and serving her and helping her and leveraging these tools and these systems that our team has put together, leveraging the exciting incentives that I know our company has put together, and the things that corporate teams are always working to implement within their business, even if they might not always get it right. So what if you look at your business like not from the gap of where you are or to where you want to be, or worse, the gap of where you are now to the height of your business? And what if instead you look at the gain from where you started, which is at zero, which is where you'd be starting again, and you look at how far you've grown and you look at the good? So I'm going to use a little analogy and get really transparent and honest with you guys about this. So I have been really wrestling now for months on whether or not we need to move and get another house. Because quite frankly, I see some issues with ours. We've got, a couple of things like the windows need to be replaced. Like there's a couple of safety concerns. We had some circumstances and scenarios within our neighborhood that, are a little bit obvious. My front porch has like a tree root that's kind of making it shift down. We have popcorn ceilings that we've never replaced in our downstairs. And there's a lot of kind of issues that I see. And so it can be really easy for me to kind of get discontent or feel like the grass is greener at some other property or some other home, somewhere else, right? But when I look at what is beautiful about my home, like the kitchen that we just redesigned 3 years ago that could not function more beautifully, that I absolutely love, the pool and the backyard that our dogs love, that everybody else has bugs around here in Savannah right now. We don't really have bugs, but I think it's because we don't really have trees in our backyard. What if like moving to a new house, we have trees in our backyard and then we have bugs? Like, I don't like bugs. I don't want bugs for sure. Our neighborhood, I took my dogs for a walk yesterday, and yes, we had like a little safety concern, but I'm not in fear of my family. And I certainly don't want to make a decision based in that fear, right? Because I know where my protector comes from. I know where my provider comes from. But taking a walk with my dogs and seeing the beautiful aspects of our neighborhood, and just the fact that I can walk them and have like exactly a little mile walk every morning and quiet my mind and look at that. Like, would I have that if we were in, another piece of property? I don't know, and that's where like, I'll let the Lord lead me. And I felt very convicted this past weekend to lay it down and let my husband lead. And so, I know what it feels like to feel restless or feel discontent. But the antidote to that, when things feel uncertain, is to look to the Lord. And I can promise you, He will guide you. And He has. Like the minute I kind of let that go is when I started to see the goodness that is all around me, despite the things that maybe aren't so great. And then guess what? The things that aren't so great, they're opportunities to fix. They're opportunities to grow, as I talk about when I share my numbers here. And so you have all of these things right where you are in your business. Hopefully you love your product. If not, maybe you should consider something different. But, like for us, like, my goodness, I don't think anybody doubts that this product is amazing. I don't think anybody doubts that women are still falling in love with it over and over and over again. And I don't think anybody doubts that like more people around the globe will want the same thing too. And that's what our corporate team is offering us, despite maybe some communication issues and some kind of getting their incentives in the wrong place. But that's where we as leaders can kind of step in, fill that gap, and have a level of control over the things we can control when corporate is not something that we're ever going to be able to control. But we can look at them as a supplier of an amazing product and, see that as, again, one of those beautiful, beautiful things, okay? And not take it for granted. So what if you're just on the other side of a breakthrough in your business? What if our company does go through renewal and we triple the volume of the highest point of our business? What if you walk away or get distracted by the shiny object and that holds you back from if you had just planted your feet here and gone all in with confidence to own the things that you love about it, to stand up against the voices that are fighting against it, because they are loud, right? Like it's, I'm not going to lie. Like if you go on social media, like you're going to see, someone having success in another company. And I wish them the best of luck in that. And that is their season. That is their journey. And just, again, going back to like the influencer side of it, if they were an online influencer who already had a big following and a big connection, of course they're going to have success in putting themselves out there. But you're going to be starting completely from scratch. Whereas if you stay right where you are, you're starting from right where you are, which is a beautiful, beautiful place to be. So what if this season is just the shakeout at Saint? What if we go to renewal in the next year? What if that looks like the biggest blessing for you, for your team, for your trust and courage of like standing your firm foundation and not based in fear or scarcity, or that, you're afraid that you're going to miss out on something if somebody else is doing this. And a good opportunity in network marketing is never like going to go away. There's always going to be that opportunity. What if the opportunity is right where you are? Because many companies, once they get through that shakeout and soar to that renewal, they continue to have this sustainable high level of growth. And again, it takes work. It's not like it's some magic trick that once you arrive there that everything's going to be great. But what if you can find joy right where you are in your business like I am? I have never felt this much joy and fulfillment because I'm looking to the Lord for wisdom, for guidance, for ideas, for the people. He's making them very clear to me, and I'm sharing it with enthusiasm and confidence. And my friend, you can do the same thing. You absolutely can do the same thing. You just have to shift your mindset. And what would your business look like if you did this? What if, right? So I'm going to wrap up with, in my Bible reading and the Bible recap, what was kind of cool is there was another part of it that I absolutely loved where it said, let me see if I can get to it, day 207, where it said, like my favorite verse, the Isaiah 40:31, that it's, if you wait on the Lord, He will renew your strength. Well, the word wait, it actually is the Hebrew word for kavah, Qavah, which means to bind together, to be joined, to meet, to expect, to be confident, to trust, endure. What a powerful word. It's much more than just wait, right? But if we read that verse with all those definitions included, it would say, those who are bound together with the Lord, joined with the Lord, who meet with the Lord, who confidently expect and trust and endure, will renew their strength. So my friend, if you're feeling burned out, and by the way, this is Tara Lee Cobble. Again, those are not my words. They are Tara Lee Cobble from the Bible recap. But if you are feeling burned out, if you're feeling weak, if you're feeling hopeless, if you're feeling scared, and these are very real feelings, and I'm not trying to negate those feelings, I invite you to kavah, right? To wait, to look to the Lord, to look to the circumstances and make a decision that is best for you, best for your family, and one that's not based in fear or scarcity, one that's based in love and fulfillment and purpose and passion. And just ask yourself, what's the best thing that could happen if, and fill in the blank? What's the worst thing that could happen if? And I really hope and pray that these circumstances and scenarios that I've kind of talked through with you today can help you paint the picture of what it looks like to make one of these decisions, and know that whatever you decide to do, whether you're on my team, whether you're a sideline sister, whether you're in another company we've never met, I want you to know that I believe in you, and I know that the Lord has a plan for you. And even if you do make a mistake, whatever that looks like, whether that's staying here, going there, quitting altogether, He can and will work all these things together for your good and His purposes. And so you can rest in that, my friend, and know that you honestly can't get it wrong, but it is smart to seek wise counsel and to be aware of the consequences of the decisions that you make. And I pray that this has been helpful for you. So love y'all. I'm excited to see what happens in this next year, and I can't thank you enough for coming along this journey with me. Y'all have a great week. Bye.